And we're live.
Woo, woo, woo.
We did it.
Sorry for the delay,
lots
everyone.
of things. Yeah, so time zone math sucks. Sucks hard.
It really does.
Just like time zone math. Live discussion of the Mistborn Era 2 Trilogy. There. Da, da, da. So yeah, we made it through another Sanderfan series.
Yay!
How about that? Or like most of the way through. Don't appreciate the cliffhanger. Okay, like
book 4's not out yet, and I'm mad about it.
Right. Like, what the heck, man? Seriously. Go lay down. Go lay down. You'll have to excuse me. My dogs are being doggy. Go lay down.
Well, they are dogs, so that's forgiven.
Right. Canine behavior can be forgiven only if you are a canine.
Mm-hmm.
Stop that. Bees. Okay, so do we want to start with, let's do thoughts on book 2 and then thoughts on book 3 and then like our ratings and then we can go from there. Does that sound good? I feel like this is shocking me or something.
Sounds good. I hope your microphone is not shocking you. That would be bad.
Yeah. I don't know what that's about. I'm gonna... There. Is that okay? Or does that cause like too much?
You sound good to me. Not a problem. I was just making sure we were live. Okay, cool.
Yes, I think we are.
Us. There we go. I just wanted to double check that before we got any further. Well, with my lovely lobster thing I'm eating from leftovers at my fancy restaurant last night, book 2 is Shadows of Self, right?
Shadows of Self, yes. Yeah, okay. Alloy of Law and then Shadow of Self.
And then Bands of Mourning. So for book 2, I really love that we got to kind of learn a lot more about all of the characters, especially the ones that are not wax and wane. Like Marcy had a much bigger part in this book, and Steris is kind of coming out of her shell. Loved it. I loved book 1. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the whole steampunk extravaganza that kind of is this trilogy, like the setting. I loved it, and I absolutely loved. So, like, I gave 5 stars to, I think, all 3 books in the series, but 5.1 stars, 5.2 stars, 5.3 stars in order of the novelization.
Right.
Yeah, I love the whole story, and I like specifically in book 2 that we get, I believe it's book 2. I might be running the books together in my brain, but I believe it's in book 2 we get a lot more of like the terrace culture, and we get to see some of the stuff with wax, and we're getting to, in this series, in my opinion, learn a lot more about the Therukemi. It's pronounced funny in the audiobook, so I don't actually know how it's spelled. But yeah.
It's like Therukemi? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Therukemi. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much right there with you. We get to see... I appreciated the how things opened up more and more with each book. I feel like with the Era 1, we were like super... with good reason, hyper-focused on this one particular area. And then not only with books 2 and 3 do we get like an expansion on Scadrial, but we also get expansion on, and I actually think it's not until book 3 that they start to kind of more address the Cosmere stuff. Or no, they did do it a little bit in book 2, didn't they?
But it's more in book 3, you were correct.
Okay. I really appreciated that. That was one of the things that kind of made me want to keep going with the series. It's like, oh, we're starting to actually tie it into all the other things now. I think I did 5 for all of them. I mean, I don't even know, but
did you? I think it was book 3. Is book 3 when they're in the other city at the party, or is that book 2?
In the other that's book 3. Yeah, where they're in the other.
Did you catch the Hoyd reference?
I did. I did.
Yeah, things are starting to come together. It's very exciting.
Yes, and I thought that that whole thing, that's end of the book stuff. But
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So then, like book 2. Let me just take a peek at the end. real quick. Oh yeah. Oh yes. So let's see. With book 2, let's start with the characters. You brought up that Maracy is a lot more present in this book. I really appreciated that we got to see more of the fact that even though women are still like expected to wear dresses and things, and Maracy is love the fact that she's a female character who's not like, I'm not like the other girls. She's like, no, I actually like the makeup and the dresses and
Yeah,
stuff.
I love
Also,
that.
I like adventuring. It's like, thank
You
you.
you can do both things. You can do both
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. So I really appreciated that. I liked seeing her kind of get on her feet a little more with getting that position at the constable's office. Constabulary, I think
The
that's what it's called.
constabulary. Yes.
Yeah. um, and then her work environment was interesting to me.
How so specifically?
So, like, she has this sort of office nemesis in
Oh yeah.
Ready. Yeah. And, like, whenever all of that comes out, it was like, whoa, that's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah. I think it's the general like social hierarchy that you see outside of the nobility. Because I know in the first trilogy it was like very focused on the nobility and what they're doing, but you see a lot more of like the common folk, the like middle class people, which is basically the people who work at the police station and stuff like that. And how like Reddy's like, well, I have to do this job before I can advance, and the actual police chief's like, you don't have to do that. Like, we don't want you to do that. You're great at what you do, dude. And he gets all jealous because Maracy gets to like, because that's more a role that she's going towards anyway. She's trained in like the law side of it, not really the like armed forces side of it. So that would
Right.
It makes sense that she gets that role, but it's interesting the dynamics just in general with all of that. So
yeah, and I like how it all plays up at the end, which again, like, we'll get there, but I was happy with where that went. For a minute, I was afraid that we were going to see Maracy and Reddy get shipped, and I was like, please don't do that. Like, don't do that. That's too easy. And it didn't come through, and I was like, yes, okay. I can do it.
I'm going on an adventure because I left my phone in the other room, but if I freeze, that's why. Going into the darkness, into the void of lack of internet.
I felt bad for her when she figured out why she got the position, though, and that a lot of it was, is his name Arendelle? Arendelle is the actual place, right? I can't remember the guy's name.
Ardell?
Ardell, yeah, he's like the retired police chief that came back, which I'm a sucker for that trope. I will just go ahead and say that. I think we may have maybe both said that in the discussion about the first book, about how that whole lawman getting pulled back into the thrill of things it's just a fun thing to read. But with Arendelle wanting to have Maracy around to watch Wax, it was kind of like, you can't even get out from under him here.
Yeah, I think that whole dynamic is interesting, and I like that she kind of is figuring that out in the second book and like does her own thing basically in the third book. And she's like, Wax, I'm not like, I'm my own person also. So I like that she's going through a slow growth in that area. So
yeah, and I was happy to see that she kind of let go of the celebrity crush that she had. You know, like, it was cute, and I kind of had hoped for things to go differently. Like, I didn't necessarily want them to get together because the age gap would have made that weird to me. But yeah, I'm glad for how that all resolved itself, and we get to see that in book 2, sort of her being like, okay, yeah, this was a thing.
We're
this
past
was a fantasy
now,
of mine. I'm past it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know best way to discuss because we're doing 2 whole books because like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like once we get into spoilers, it's going to run between the books and it's kind of
Yeah.
go like that. But I know for a fact that this book hurt me as it probably hurt everybody else. And this one is like, wait, why isn't the 4th book out yet?
Right. It's like, wait. No, it can't be over. The second book was so hard. Like, I ugly cried. Because it was just like, oh no.
I ugly cried the first time I listened to the audio because I haven't physically read these yet. I meant to for this reread, but I like have been too busy for that. Also in a reading slump. Yay, audiobooks for shoving them down my throat. Yeah. But I ugly cried the first time and I knew it was coming and I'm like, I don't want it. I'm unhappy in advance.
Yeah. So Wax in book 2, he sort of is working a little closer with Harmony and Tensoon. We get to see more of Milan,
which is cool.
Which is cool. I love Milan, and of course, Wayne is always great.
Of course,
he's always fantastic. I'm trying to remember. So that's book 3, but like we get to see for Wayne, we get to see him like directly face the little girl of the guy that he shot, right? That's in book 2, I think. Mm-hmm. When he goes to deliver the money to her. And
also, sorry if you hear weird noises. It started raining here and I'm sitting in my living room and the fireplace, the little thing rebounds the rain noise. So
okay. Completely lost my train of thought because that's when the brain works.
He had to confront the girl of the daughter of the dad he shot because I like that it was, you didn't know what you were getting into in that whole scene because he was like sneaking into the university. He's not allowed to be there. And then it's like, and it was like a funny ruse. And then you're like, oh crap, we're getting real right now. Like this is pain.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of pain.
And I understand and admire why Wayne does that, but also at the same time, it's like, I wish that for yourself that you could let this go because clearly this is a cross that you bear. Yeah. And I hate that for Wayne. He's always the levity. So whenever he gets real like broody, it's like, oh no. It's like Wayne.
This extra hurts. So
yeah.
So I think we get to. I believe it's in the second book that we get to see the like rioters and soothers in action like on a massive scale. Was that?
Yeah.
That was really cool for me. To just kind of just get to peer into that a little bit and how there's like an industry around that versus like going to a bar to dampen the emotions. You like go to a soothing parlor or something like that. Was wild to me.
Yeah, I loved that. That was a lot of fun. And so like I understand that I should have put this together like way before, but I did not catch on to the fact, wait, is that book 2 or book 3? I don't know. I feel like
just say it. We're here.
Window. Yeah. So I should have figured it out, but I didn't. I did not know that Breeze was Wax's ancestry. I did not put that together.
I didn't either until it said, I think that was in the second book that we hear that. But I was like, Breeze! I love the old school name drop from the OG squad.
Right. Yes. And there's a lot of those that make me want to reread the first trilogy because I'm like, okay, I remember this name. Don't necessarily remember who it is.
I think that's a beauty of Sanderson's like, Cosmere specifically. I haven't read his other stuff that's outside of that, but the Cosmere specifically, there's enough like lines that connect the dots between the different books in the same series and the different books in the same whole universe that is like, oh, I want to read it again. I'm excited to go back because like I'm going to notice something new. So
Right.
I think that's a good artistic choice on his part to be like, I'm going to throw together this universe where everything is connected and see what people get.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that since we're on the name thing, I noticed that Demu,
Jamu.
who he ends up being like really important in the first trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, he dies like in a battle or something. Like he ends up being a hero of sorts.
Yeah.
And I noticed that he had some things named after him and some family that had, you know, transcended into this second era. And I was like, yay!
Recognition, hallelujah. But yeah, I think this series, and I imagine this will continue with the follow on because I think there's gonna be 4 total series in the Mistborn, like on Scadrial
Okay.
area.
Okay.
I like in this series that we're getting not just a more in-depth thing about the ferrochemists, which, and if you remember in Era 1, most of them were dead or being enslaved, so they had lost a lot of history where we through Wax and that like flashback to him when he lived in the village, we're getting to see a lot more of that culture, but I also like that we're getting to learn more about how like the Conjura actually work and like what they do. Like I know a big plot of book 2 is that the Conjura in question is missing a spike and like how that person is slowly losing their mind, but they also did that so they specifically couldn't be controlled. So it's one of those like, I see why you did that, but also yikes.
Yeah.
And then what's the other, the stabby metal magic?
Stabby metal magic. Hemalurgy.
Yeah, and we're also getting to learn more about hemalurgy through like the slightly more modern era, like analyzing all the metals and what they're doing. So, and whenever we get to talking to about book 3, like how there's just a lot more people on this planet that we've ever paid attention to is wild. So I'm just excited to see what the heck happens in book 4.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I liked how in book 3 when things went wide, it wasn't so weird as when it happened in book 3 of the first era, in my opinion, because like the and I understand that a lot of that was just like learning curve for the Cosmere itself. But whenever we got to the end of Era 1 and things went wide, I was a little bit like, what is going on? And then with books 3 and this one, I was like, oh, I see.
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm intrigued, but it wasn't like, oh, huh? You know?
Mm-hmm. I'm emotionally ready to break down the plot of this one and the depression and whatnot. But
yes,
first of all, Harmony, that was mean to do to Waxilium Ladrian. But I do like that when we get to see him finally facing Harmony again in the next book, Harmony, aka Sazed, is like, would you have preferred I let her be killed by someone else? Would you have preferred that I did this? Like, yeah, it hurt and it was brutal, but like it had to be done. And there's always the imbalance between like the god doing like controlling too much, and I think that's a lot of Harmony's general debate in this series. Is like, I've been controlling too much, I've given you too much, but at the same time, he's like, the important stuff I'm going to leave you to handle yourself, and it's going to suck, but like you're going to do it.
Right. Yeah. I liked that conversation too. I really appreciate how much of Sazed is still present within Harmony. I like that he has like maintained his sense of self despite the fact that he's embodying all these like cosmic powers now. And yeah, whenever Bleeder first starts talking like she knows who Leslie is, I was like, is she fucking with him? She's screwing with his head, right? And then
when it
like
ended up
you
being
realize it like right before Wax comes to terms with what's happening, and it was like, no, 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 no.
yeah, and it's not like, in Harmony's defense, it's not like he sent Leslie originally in the roughs to like fall in love with him. That was a choice that she made, and that's beautiful. First of all, second of all, it's like, well, that happened. That was not in like the original order, but it was like Harmony was just trying to look out for Wax and kind of deal with that. Obviously, I think when he killed her in the roughs, that was one of the issues that Wax had with Harmony when he like put the whole puzzle together, because he's like, you did that because you needed me to come back, and that sucked. And then he basically has to go through that again with more awareness of what's going on in the situation. So yeah, it's a sad time, and it's kind of the reader and Wax figure out what's going on at the same time. So a good styling choice. My God, it is raining so hard. Sorry. I'm like, are my plants getting destroyed? I actually am gonna go check on my plants real quick. I'll take you with me, but so you can talk about the things also. So
okay, all right, yeah. So that was big. That was big, and that was hard to watch Wax go through. And I was with Wax until he had the conversation with Harmony in book 3, and I was like, okay, fine. Like, yes, you are this all-seeing, all-knowing, but you don't necessarily have the just put it down, Casey. Just put it down and go get your stuff.
I got the little baby plant inside. That's what I was worried about, but the big plant should be fine. It's just under like all of the deluge. It's raining real hard.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, those are still, because the plants can do a little bit of rain, but not like that much rain. I'm back.
And then I feel like we didn't get as much of Steris in book 2. Nowhere near as much of Steris in book 2 as we do in book 3.
But still more than book 1.
3. But still more than book 1, yes. And I'm trying to think, like, Wayne didn't really have a whole lot of growth in book 2, did he? He was sort of still just doing the Wayne thing.
Yeah. Mostly
like we got to see his encounter with his conscience. And then, yeah, we talked about Maracy. And then, okay. So Steris in book 2, it was very charming to watch how she reacted to Wax's grief. You know, it was like, oh, okay, that's like a point in your corner. Like, I concede you might be good for him.
Yeah, which is what she and he end up talking about in third book. Wax is like, you were just there for me, and I needed that, and I appreciate if not love you for that. I don't think he said the L word specifically, but like, yeah.
I don't think he said the L word to her. I don't think he's dropped that yet.
But by the end of book 3, they're very happy and definitely in love, even if they're not going to admit it to each other.
Well, and I know that Steris actually admits it to Maracy, like, towards the end of book 3. She's like, yes, I do love him. That's ridiculous, isn't it? And Maracy's like, yeah, it is. But, you know.
I think we start to see it in book 2 where...
down.
But it's definitely in book 3, we get to see Steris, like, kind of tagging along with some of the Alamancy trips, like, when... I know we get to see it for sure in book 3, but she loves, like, when she gets to go fly with Wax. Like, it's so cute. Like, her just, like, pure joy from that. I'm like, yes, queen, get it.
Yeah, I think in book 2 is like whenever we see them like fly up to this event that they're doing, and she like gets all flushed, and um and then even like whenever he rescues her the first time, it touches on the fact that she like kind of gets all hot and bothered about it. She's like, whoa,
What is
this is
this?
crazy. Right, this is thrilling. Please go lay down.
She's very cute.
He's very brat. um so yeah, now book 2, book 1, I really got me hooked. Book 2, I felt like was slower, but not, not bad, but
Yeah.
the slower of the 3.
It
And
added a
then
lot of
book
the world building
3,
stuff in book 2 for sure.
right? Yeah, that it was more like it was more like, okay, we've got you hooked on the fact that it's like the Wild West and Scadrial now. It's time to catch you up on all the things that are happening.
That'll be important
or
for
have
book
happened
3.
since, yeah. And then with book 3, I really liked, like, it was hard for me to put down because it just, like, you go in straight, picks up right where everything else left off, like 6 months after, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're off on this ride now.
I think we've pretty much touched on everything from book 2 specifically, but book 3 is where.
Say, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I decided to start talking with like a bite full of bread in my mouth. So,
That's okay.
But book 3 is when we kind of get to see like the team, the dream team here, go out and like be on a mission. And when I like say go out and be on a mission, it's like they're not just doing like stopping little criminals or stuff from their past kind of thing in the same city. They're like, we're gonna go out, explore, do this thing. Probably gonna go like sideways when the shit hits the fan, but like we're gonna have a great time. And then they're like, well, this is crazy. There's a whole new population of people we didn't even know that existed on this planet who, when the Lord Ruler created, or whenever Sazed as Harmony created the perfect world, like destroyed the heck out of there. So maybe we're not on the perfect planet after all.
Yeah. So that was, man, it's really hard for me to address that without getting into the actual like end of the book. But
I mean, we're definitely in spoilers already, so I'm just go for it.
Okay, all right. So that epilogue, dude. The fucking epilogue, like,
God, it's scary.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually find that epilogue because I don't. Where are you? Oh, yep.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Right. I was like, internal screaming. Yes. So I was so confused, and I still don't quite know, but it seems to me like whenever Saza took over, and like shit kind of went south for the people in the South, they talk about how the Lord Ruler went to them to help them survive, but it looked to me like the epilogue was actually, it was Kelsier.
So
who went and helped them.
I'm honestly still not 100% on that. Based on like the statue, that's definitely more of a depiction of the Lord Ruler than it was of Kelsier. So I'm not. The epilogue.
But he had the spike through the eye, and the Lord Ruler didn't have spikes in his eyes.
So, as we know from the Stormlight Archive, if you stay alive long enough, you become a villain. And whenever we get to Arcanum Unbounded, we'll get to figure out how the heck Kelsier's still alive. But
I just assumed Sazed had something to do with it.
You'll find out.
Yeah, all right.
His stubbornness and his refusal to die is a large portion of it. But I think with the way the epilogue works, it actually is probably more likely that it's Kelsier, because all of the characters were like, what do you mean the Lord Ruler didn't die? Because he definitely did. And we did
He definitely
see that.
did. Yeah,
there's
like,
not
he dead as hell.
Yeah, I mean, in Era 1, he's like, y'all don't know what I was protecting you from, and then he, like, dies. And there's not, like, a survivable option past that. So I think it's interesting, and the epilogue is very indicative that it may not have been the Lord Ruler, but I don't think the people or us reading have all of the information yet.
Okay. All right. So get that. Well, so that was my impression, was that they thought it was the Lord Ruler who hadn't actually died. And then we got to the epilogue, and Kelsier with the spike through his face is there telling these people to survive. And it's the people with masks, like they had masks on. Mm-hmm. And then I think even the statue, though, like the statue had a spike through his eye. And that was one of the things they were like, it's the Lord Ruler, and it has a spike through its eye, and he's holding a spear. And I'm like, wait a second. The Lord Ruler didn't have a spear, and the Lord Ruler didn't have a spike in his face.
And Kelsier was killed with a spear by the Lord Ruler. So
right. And then didn't he take a spike to the face? Like, wasn't that like how he died or something?
I don't honestly remember.
Or maybe he's a victim of hemalurgy.
Maybe that's how he got out of the void that he seems to be in Arcane Unbounded. So I don't think we definitely don't have all the information yet.
Okay.
But
all right. So yes,
I do support the theory that it's not actually the Lord Ruler as we know in Era 1. But
so something that I really, really loved about book 3, and Meraci in particular, is whenever she is standing in front of the statue of Vin, and she's like, I bet you were never insecure. You always knew what to do. And I'm thinking, girl, no. Vin was lost as lost can get. Like,
and that's the point. Like, everybody in real life and also in these books, like, maybe a hero to the general population, but they're like, well, I don't know what's going on, and I'm trying to like stop nearly dying and like stand up for myself a little bit, but I'm confused.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I thought that was really interesting. That whole graveyard scene was just really great.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what graveyard scene? I was like, I'm just kidding. I know what's happening. Everything is.
And I loved how whenever they get into the graveyard, and after everything's gone down, after they've like exploded and all the things have happened, and they're in the graveyard keeper's like shed or whatever, and Wayne is looking around, and he's looking around, and it's like, he must be looking for something useful. Then he finally finds what he's looking for, and it was like, nope, it's just the booze. And then he's like, yeah, there's a book over there. And Meraci's like, when were you going to mention that? And he's like, it's not important. I was looking for.
He was here for the alcohol, as he likes to be, and as we know, Wayne has helped many a person with some good booze. So
yes.
Yeah, yes. I like that scene, and I like that we get to see shortly after that where it's Death is visiting the other person, and it's actually ends up being Wayne, and he's like, I just added that to the accent because he's supposed to be old and gravelly. Meraci's like, well, he didn't actually sound like that, by the way.
Yes, and I love how he's like, well, the next time you see him,
tell him to come see me so I can learn all his accent.
Yeah, I need to know what he sounds like.
The narrator for these books is great because Wayne has a very distinct voice that I cannot replicate. And his voice changes the voice actor, so I think it's Michael Kramer, of course. But the voice actor like changes, obviously, the voice of Wayne for all the accents, and it's so cool. And I'm like, yes. And you can tell from that. What's up?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and you could tell from like when Death or Iron Eyes or whatever actually visited Meraci, the voice was different than Wayne's accent.
Yes. Yes. So whenever I do my reread of this, I need to do it on audio because that's something that I've been kicking myself for from the start. And I did a little bit of audio in book 2, I think, to try to like finish it up real fast. But yeah, as soon as I saw that Wayne was playing with accents, I was like, oh, I should have been doing this on audio. I don't know what I was thinking.
I just did them all on audio because it was when I first read them, and then I ordered all the books from Europe after that.
Sammy actually gifted me these.
Way to go,
She bought them from Waypoint Books. It's just a friend of ours, owns a bookstore, owns a bookshop, runs a bookshop. It's not a physical location. She has an online bookstore. There we go.
There we go.
And she's in the UK, so Sammy ordered these for me, and I got the UK cover.
Yeah, I just caved and did Amazon.co.uk. And it was funny because the books were cheaper than I expected. It kind of made it up to be American prices when you included the shipping, but like the books were like $4 or $5 like US dollars a piece. I was like, wow, dang, nice.
Right. Yeah. So another thing about Wayne, and I'm getting into a little bit of Stormlight Archive here. So a little bit of Stormlight Archive spoilers, but whenever Shallan, whenever we see her in those like multiple personalities and she is sort of losing herself in this person that she's pretending to be, or like, what is it? She does the, what is her power? What is her thing?
The weaving of the...
Yes, light weaving.
Light weaving. There you go. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So whenever she does her light weaving and she like becomes this other person, I think that's going to end up being some sort of investiture type thing. And I think that Wayne does it too. Because whenever we are in Wayne's head and seeing him getting ready to take on a disguise, like with the guard at the bunker, and he's like, haven't seen my daughter in 8 months, and I am, like he takes on that person, and I was like, hang on a second, that's actually like you're doing a thing, like that's a
magic thing.
Right, yeah, like that's actually part of the magic system, I think.
So yeah, I think that's gonna I never thought about that, but that's a good point. That's very interesting. Oh, how the turntables.
So Steris in book 3.
Oh, I love her. She has her whole list when they get to the inn, and the innkeeper's like, "What do you mean we might die?" And she's like, "Well," and then whenever they end up having to leave the inn, she's like, "It was on the 17th page of the list of things that might happen." So I love that she's so prepared, because I like to do that thing too in my life where I'm like, I'm gonna be stressed about something way before it actually happens so I can handle the situation. So like I don't do it obviously to the extent that Steris does, bless her. But
nobody does it to the extent that Steris does.
But I definitely relate to like her need to kind of accommodate any potential scenario. It's to like keep herself sane, because that's a deal. And then I love that we get to see her be more excited about some of the like flying around with wax, and then she drops a line a few times about, I found that the safest places to be is near you, Waxilium, like during a firefight and whatnot. But I also like that we get to see her later being like, I'll stay with the horses. That's above my pay grade of like needing to be near you. Like I will just be more difficult in there, and she probably would have been, so that would track.
She's very comfortable with her limits. Like she's very comfortable with that, and I think that's part of like what makes me like her character a little bit. Is like she acknowledges her limits. She's very honest. She's just very like forthright.
Yes, which is great. Also, that little scene where she was reading the like sexual anatomy book in the church.
Oh my god!
Wax was like, "Wait, what are you doing?"
It was so funny. It was so funny. Oh,
she was like, "Well, we were supposed to be married today."
Yes. And she's like, I get the anatomy of it. Like, I'm not stupid, but no one will explain anything. They just give me innuendo or sly looks, and I was like,
"You figure it out."
Yes. And it was such a relatable experience, right? Like. Nobody goes into having sex actually knowing what having sex is and what you're supposed to do. Like, that doesn't happen. And just to see Steris like, I don't even know. And then for Wax to call her out, she just like starts. It was
hilarious, but
was
also
brilliant.
like a good thing to illustrate the book. I'm like, yes, look at you being excited about this. I wanted to make sure you're doing it. Good for you. Good for you, Steris.
Yes.
Yeah, and so Steris was just a crack-a-lackin' event in this book. She was great. Loved her. And then she also, like, Wax, like, realizes that, because she was only giving herself, like, a 7 out of 100 effectiveness rating. And then she ends up actually being so much more effective in, like, the negotiations, the things at the parties, like, just being prepared for everybody and, like, figuring stuff out. I'm like, yes, go get it, girl. You deserve higher than a 7,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes. Yeah. And the way she asks Meraci, you can help me with this. How useless am I? It's like, you two have such a weird relationship. Like,
they're like,
what?
They're technically half sisters, but apparently, like, I think they have such a weird relationship because Meraci wasn't ever acknowledged as being a part of the family for so long that, like, now they're having to interact and they're, like, basically new friends or whatever.
Yeah. I think what struck me as off about it is that even though Meraci is the one who, she's like the bastard child, and so she's kind of looked down on. She like kind of grew up with that, but she's not the one who's insecure. Steris is the one who's insecure, and she's insecure because she thinks she's boring and useless. And it's like, what has Lord Harm's been talking about with his daughters? Like, what is he doing? Is he just like rubbing them through the dirt all the time? Because I don't get it.
No comprendo.
No comprendo. Yes. There was something else about Steris. The Epicac at the party.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever she's like, I thought somebody was just going to poison us, but this works too. And she just downs Epicac and then vomits everywhere to get them out of the thing. And I was like, damn.
She's so prepared for any situation.
I loved it. I absolutely. And she snuck the gun in.
And like how many times she wrapped it around her leg because she was nervous it was going to fall off.
I kept envisioning it going off.
And then when she was like, I was going to do a shotgun, but I really couldn't walk around with that on.
It's like, nobody can wife Lord Waxilium Ladrian like Steris. Like,
Steris is perfect.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
And the two of them just generate like comic relief off each other, so it like helps when Wayne isn't doing it to like have a livening aspect to the book.
Yes, I also liked that Wayne started kind of coming around to Steris a bit more, because he was very dejected on Wax's behalf. You know, that he was kind of like being pinned into this marriage. And I liked how Wayne started sort of warming up to her in the end.
Yeah.
It was like, yay.
On the note of Wayne, I do definitely ship him and the Milan. And I like that he's like just chill with like all of the Condrish stuff, like where he like if Milan like had to go be a dude, she's like, well, it's still the same person.
I love it because he's like, maybe it would help. Maybe it's a good thing for a woman to be a fella every once in a while.
Yeah, Wayne's just like, I'm here for the ride.
Right, yeah.
He's like, I dress up as a woman occasionally to get something done. Like, why can't other people?
Why not? I love it. They're so perfect for each other. And the thing is, like, until it happened, I would have never expected it. Would have never put it together. But then as soon as it happened, I was like, yes.
And I like
that the way it's supposed to be.
I like that Meraci was like, bro, Renette likes girls. Like, she's never going to fall in love with you.
That part, I actually, like, I was so sad for Wayne. Because he was just, like, he worshipped the ground that Renette walked on. And
I think he still does. He's just like, I'm not going to be annoying about being in love with her anymore.
Yeah. what was it that he said? Was like talking to her about the fact that she's courting a woman, and then he's like, "So I don't suppose there's any room in there for," and she's like, "Wayne," and he's like, "All right, fine."
No.
Yeah,
LOL.
and then Milan talking about whenever they go missing during the train fight, and then they find them in the compartment, and Wayne's excuse is pretty much like, "It's been a while, okay?" And Milan's like, "Yes," and he was just in need of a good snogging, and I was like,
and like poor Wax, like and Marcy were like, "They died. Where are they? We can't find."
Like worried sick. It was just they just can't hear anything because they're busy boinking under the train.
Book 3 was a ride. So real quick before we move off of Steris, I really and I imagine we'll talk about this in a minute or later again, but I love the little proposal thing and like the insta marriage at the end between him. Well, I was like, well, we already had the wedding. It's not our fault there wasn't a marriage at the end.
Yes. And you know what? Wax never figures out that was Wayne.
Never. He never figured it out.
And I love how Marcy was like, he's going to figure it out. And Wayne's like, nah, he's not. He tends to have a blind spot where I'm concerned. And it's like, and I was waiting for it. Like I was waiting for the shoe to drop and it never did. And I got to the end of the book and I was like, I'll be damned. He never finds out.
To be fair, shortly after the wedding, they were like being shot at in a different city and like going to search for the bands of mourning. So he was a little busy, but I imagine
that's
like
true.
I envision a world where it's like 20 years later or something when there's kids involved, like baby Wax and Steris all around. Wayne will be like, yo, remember y'all's wedding? It was me that like accidentally destroyed the water tower and like ruined everything.
Yes, that was it was just so good. It was so well done. It was so Wayne.
Very Wayne. And then he's like, well, I guess the lads went a little harder than expected on I just told them to get a little wet in there.
Imagine they got carried away. I also liked Wayne's back and forth with the character that we meet, whose name I'm probably not going to pronounce right, but it's like Alec or someone who's one of the masked people.
Yeah, I think it's Alex is how the name.
Alec.
Yeah.
Okay. His back and forth that isn't actually a back and forth with Alec because like Alec doesn't have the medallion on to help him with his speech.
Translation. When he's like, well, you should worship me too. We know Wax doesn't want it.
Right, yeah. He's like, you could call me all kinds of things, like guy with a really great hat.
Yes, Alex was a cool character too.
And then the whenever he's trying to be the engineer and he's like, it's not right. And then he sticks the thing behind his ear and he's like, now it is all done. I'm like,
and then his little mission just is forcing a bunch of people to hold the boat still when nothing is actually.
That was great. I really liked that one. That was great.
Yeah.
Them discovering Alec was really, for a second, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, are there Parshendi on this fucking planet? Like, what is going on? And then she was like, it's a mask and it's furry. And I was like, okay, so maybe not like Parshendi, but like something. And then she's like, no, it's actually just a human. And I was like, well, what the hell? What's going on? What is this?
But they have a culture where you don't show any emotions, apparently. That's I think all we really know about them at this point. But I think that'll be a large plot of the final book in the quartet, I guess, if there's not going to be only 3 books. But or sequence, is that what 4 books are? I don't know, but
I don't have any idea.
Yeah, I feel like they're the kind of the being visual on the rest of the planet, including like the new people that they discover, will be a large part of next book, and will probably lead us into the third era eventually.
Third era. I wondered about that. Yeah, that's kind of like where my brain went. I was like, oh, so maybe in era 3, we're maybe not necessarily looking at this same part of Scadrial at all. We're going to be like moving to the southern hemisphere or something. All I know is that like Era 3 is more like present day modern time, and Era 4 will be like space opera. Okay. Which I imagine Era 4 is like the Cosmere is all accessible via spaceships. I was going to say, it sounds like Era 4 is going to be like, now, the Cosmere begins to explode.
Or we can actually travel. We don't have to be like a world hopper. So
yeah. The party. Jumping back to the party real quick. The lady, the terrace woman, that like comes and dances with Wax.
Steals Wax.
It just like starts talking to him about all this stuff, and it was like, wait, what are you?
And then she just disappears. We don't hear about it again.
And then she talks about, what is it, like the red light in the speed bubble or something? I really think Maurice's Allomancy is going to become more
useful.
Yeah, it's going to become more key to a lot of things, which is pretty much just Maurice's character arc, right? She's like, I am nothing, and then I am something, and then I am nothing, and then I am something. And my powers are nothing, but they will be something.
Ta-da! No, yeah, so I thought that little was honestly kind of like an interlude. She like jumps in, kind of interrogates him, and then like disappears. I'm like, you're gonna be important later.
Right. Yeah, and it was little things like that kept really pushing me through this book in particular. I mean, of course, there's a lot happening. There's so much going on, but the little drops in there that's like, this place is being investigated by someone who doesn't live on this planet, and this is interesting. And also, I'm seeing lots of similar words from Stormlight Archive, like investiture, and it's like,
well, that's basically
where are you going with this?
That's in my brain what a lot of feruchemy is, because you're basically having to pour something into something, and my brain is like, that is investiture.
Right. Yeah. So I completely forgot about copper mines. And then at the end, whenever we figure out that the coin is a copper mine, and I was like, wait, copper mine, I know what that does. Memories, what's happening?
Memories.
Yes, and then like that, part of me is like, okay, so Hoid, is that Wit? I'm wondering if he's like,
well, Hoid
back and forth.
Hoid is Wit. They are one and the same.
Okay.
He has a few different names in the Stormlight Archive, but his, I think, truest name is Hoid, based on the fact that's what Brandon Sanderson is like gonna eventually write a book about.
Yeah. And then like he's actually, we find out in Stormlight Archive that he's actually like one of the people who, he's like part of one of the people that's like writing the Arcanum Unbounded kind of thing. And so it's like, wow, this is all very like big picture overhead.
Yeah.
So what did you think of Wax's sister?
I definitely, the first time I read it, thought there was something off about her from the beginning. Like, she was, not that she didn't have the right to be that angry, but it was like almost too much. And I was like, huh. And then she, obviously, like looking back, you're like, she was too convenient in a few situations. And I knew about the time, like when I was reading it originally, when Suit like walked into the place, it was like, something is afoot. He would not walk in there if he did not already have the upper hand. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So
that was crazy to me, because the thing is, I was suspicious of Steris for a lot of the book, because I was like, she is enjoying herself too much. She has not been true with us since the beginning. And then turns out that it's Wax's sister who's all jacked up. And I was like, I thought he was turning and getting ready to shoot Steris. And that I was going to end up being right after I had given her, the benefit of the doubt. And then he whips around with the gun. And I was like, no, don't be Steris. Yay, it's not Steris.
Yeah.
I can't remember his sister's name.
I can't either, but I just think, like, he and his sister in the flashbacks, you see that they never had a super great relationship. She was always, like, with her own motive and mission, and, like, if he didn't want to tag along, that was his problem. Also, he was, like, a wimp or whatnot. But so I was like, I was never a fan of her, and then when we kind of see her in this book, like that's why she's not portrayed in a great light in the flashback. So when we see her like join the squad, I'm like, oh, I don't like it. I just don't know why
yet. Yeah. I was kind of the same way, like especially about the flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says something to him like, you never want to see what's through the door or something like that. Like, you never want to find out what's through the door. Where's your curiosity? And it's like, how are you going to ask Waxilium where his curiosity is? That dude is the epitome of curiosity kills the cat, okay? Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
And Vindication brought it back, I think, is like the full saying. And he has a gun named Vindication. And I think that that's very funny.
That actually, let me look at that quote. I did not know that was a real quote.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones that people only say the first half of. I'm trying to find her name. Starts with a T. Why can't it's like Telsa or something?
Telson.
Telson. There it is. So yeah, I was.
Well, but Satisfaction brought it back.
Satisfaction. Okay. Crap. Oh well.
Vindication is a synonym for satisfaction, so sort of close enough.
Sort of. Yeah. It's the gun's name. I'm going with it. Mm-hmm. And then speaking of guns and Telson, Wayne, man.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. and then
we like know why Wayne was able to do it, because he knew she would heal herself, but at the same time Wax, like in his brain, was like, oh, I wish she would just made her actually die.
Right.
Which is a little brutal, but
seeing Wayne lose Wax was so hard.
I was not a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really tough to watch.
Yeah, that was definitely a deal, and you see him go like very quickly through all the stages of grief, and then hang out, and then he's like, oh, Wax didn't die. Well, I'm still mad that he basically did die also. He just was given the magical spear point.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. How the bands, we're visualizing the armbands, because we as the reader know that the Lord Ruler was like covered in them and doing all the things,
and that was his like while the nobility, he convinced them to wear jewelry so they wouldn't notice that he was like a therochemist.
Yes, and then for it to be the tip of the spear, for the bands of mourning to be the tip of the spear. And then I liked how they wrapped bands still into it, because it had the bands of different metals. Mm-hmm. So it was still bands of mourning. And I was like, clever wordplay.
I like see what you did there.
Let's see. We touched on the fact that Wax dies and comes back to life. So let's go ahead and talk about his conversation with Harmony.
Okay. Go ahead and start, because I honestly am not remembering it very clearly in my brain.
Okay. So I enjoyed that we got to see Wax and Harmony actually like circling the planet, so that he was actually getting this like bigger picture view that Sazed has. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about, like you mentioned earlier, they talk about how he trusts them to do what needs to be done. And then you see the little like ting on the planet, and Wax is like, what's that? Sazed's like, that's your girl Maracy getting ready to come in and save your ass.
Maracy.
And then we get to see Sazed confront Waxilium with like, here's freedom, here's going back to life. And then when he tries to choose life, he's like, but is that really what you want? And Wax is like, I have to. And he's like, no, you don't. And he forces
him to make the decision.
Yes, he forces Wax to acknowledge that he does have freedom of choice. And it was like, that's right. Yes, that's indeed. Right. You can't always hide behind the fact that you feel like this is just how you have to be. No.
And your duty and all of those things.
Yes.
Like, you have to make the choice that that's what you want to do and that's what you want to be. And it's if you'll remember from our East of Eden reading, you have a choice to do whatever the heck you want. Thou mayest and thou mayest not.
Yes.
Sorry, I was like, that rings a bell, the choice.
Yeah. I concur. It's really weird. I've been making a lot of connections with a lot of the books that I've been reading recently. Watching the technology evolve through Era 2 while also reading East of Eden and watching the technology evolve there was really interesting. Especially the cars, because nobody was happy that cars came.
No one was happy about cars in any fictional or real universe, turns out.
Right. Everybody's pissed off that cars are a thing. And then, let's see, I feel like, Suit.
Yeah.
Mr. Suit.
So he's the worst uncle to ever exist, first of all. And yes. he basically disappears for the most of the second book, which is interesting. Yeah. Like he's mentioned in a lot of the investigations and stuff that Wax is doing. Like Wax thinks it's all Suit, but really it's not. And then obviously he's a major player in this. And I think the biggest thing that Suit brings to the table is like this organization called the Set. And I imagine, based on the fact that they killed him in prison at the end of this book, that we're going to actually kind of see like who that is, and if the Set is that mystical thing that the Lord Ruler claimed to be protecting people from, because they seem like an off-planet kind of organization, if just on my personal intuition, because the Lord Ruler was like, you don't know what I'm protecting you from, and all of these things. So, and then with like the red coin and the like demonic stuff. Demonic might not be the right word, but like the evilness that we see in both Lessie in book 2, like she's being controlled by something beyond her own control or out of her own like normal Scadrial like magic system, and she's motivated by other things. And then we see that with the weird coins that don't look like they're of this planet. So I'm like, who really is the Set? And yeah, Suit generally sucks. As a character.
Yes, someone else moves us, lawman.
Yeah.
And then that kind of we get an allusion to that also while Wax and Harmony are talking, because they see the red in the sky, and I thought that was interesting because in Mistborn Era 1 they can't see the sky. And then in Mistborn Era 2, they first mention the red thing in the sky, I think just like for a split second in book 2. And then Wax notices it again. And then he goes out and talks to Harmony. And then whenever he comes back, he can see it from the planet, and he has like a different perspective on what that is now. So there's like a lot of attention going to this whatever that is. Yeah. Which I'm kind of hypothesizing is odium.
Or the equivalent for, because, it probably actually is odium on a larger scale, like in the universe, because originally in Era 1, there was the evil and the good kind of as two beings. They're both kind of conjoined now in Sazed, aka Harmony. He like took on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But we know in this universe that each planet or area has like a god of light and evil, like that's the battle perpetually. So I'm wondering if odium from like Stormlight, for example, is like being feisty in other places that he shouldn't be, or if there's like one of the gods of evil kind of things from the other planets like that are stepping out of jurisdiction, so to speak. I don't know what jurisdiction means in the Cosmere, but
right.
but it seems
Cosmic
like
jurisdiction.
yeah, like I don't know what that means, but there's someone is stepping out of line to be affecting the red dot of evil on Scadrial, because that should be handled
Yes.
in theory.
Right. So something that they touch on in the epigraphs in Stormlight Archive is that you have a couple. There's like an entire part in one book where you can tell that the epigraphs are being written by Sazed. And I always know this because he says, I think. That's like his thing. And it was very well done, because the thing is, in Era 1, he says, I think, to a point of annoyance. And then it ends up kind of being his calling card for the reader throughout the rest of the Cosmere. That
I need to be better about reading all the epigraphs. That's just my
well, so he writes a lot of the epigraphs, and he's like talking to these other beings who are like exploring the Cosmere and discovering the Cosmere and searching the Cosmere. And he's talking to them about Odium, about how he thinks Odium is like encroaching on him, or like that he's a danger, or that he says, you fear Odium, but I think you should more fear the vessel, or something like that.
Which is Teravangian now. But yeah. No, that's interesting. So I definitely did not make that connection with the epigraphs, but that would be a spicy meatball.
Yeah, so I think like it's all sort of gonna end up coming to
a head.
Yeah, well, and I think Sazed's gonna end up being a real key person. Like whenever everything finally clashes together, I think he's gonna end up being somebody of great import to the entire thing, especially because he is a mortal who has taken on and embodied these two higher powers. Beast? No. Give it to me. Come here. He was chewing on these.
Oh no.
They're my friend Stephanie's. And
bad dog.
Stop chewing on them. Anyway, yeah, so that's the thing.
Yeah, so I think, have we hit everything in this book that happens? Oh, I think we should probably talk about the flying ships, which are very cool.
Yes.
I think it's like they basically throughout the course of this book, we're seeing like little pieces of the magic or of the like use of the allomancy or feruchemy that are actually all parts of the big ship thing we see at the end. But I think it's very interesting. Like they were their whole like scientific investigation experience with the little magic cube, or they call it like the allomancy grenade. Yes. And then they're like, oh, this actually, like, you store something in here and then you power the little ships. Oh, wow, that's wild. But everything has, like, different applications, and I think that's interesting conceptually to think about, because a lot of times, like, in our world, scientific development is scientific development for research, but there's always, like, all these other applications you have to consider. So wonder if that's going to be, like, because I think they were trying to, like, build a bomb out of the boat, the set was, and stuff, so...
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, I didn't see that coming. I figured they're here for the bands of mourning. That's what they're coming after. And then it turns out they're actually here for the bomb that never went off. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that I don't quite understand why the Morshi? What is their names? The people.
I don't recall the name of the peoples, but
so they like worship Wax, because they know that he's a Metalborn.
Yeah,
but they use that power to power their ships. So it's strange to me that it's like viewed as divine, but then used in
science.
Yeah, so it was like, what's the story there? And I'm hoping that they go into that more in the next book.
Yes,
as to why these people worship people who can do metal stuff.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting for sure. Their whole culture is very interesting. We just don't know a lot about them. Like when we got Rhythm of War, we learned a lot more about the
Parshendi.
Yes, thank you. The Parshendi and that whole culture, which were originally conceived as the villains until you figured out that like the humans were actually colonizers, invaders of that planet. But I think with not in the same like war against each other way that we see in that book, but I feel like we're gonna get to like in the next book get a lot more expansion into the scope of the whole planet. I hope at least. So that'll be exciting. Cause I remember when I read this book originally, so back like last February, originally book 4 was already supposed to be out. So I was so mad when I got there. I'm like, wait, there's not a 4th book. And I'm still equally mad about that now, like a year later, basically. But
yeah. Well, and I can understand that because now you've read it twice and it's still not here.
At least he's working on it now, which is good.
Yeah.
I think Rhythm of War took him longer than expected to write.
I think so too. And I think a lot of that had to do with God, why does my brain do this? Why does it just like blank slate in the middle of a freaking sentence?
I don't know. I'm just tired. So I'm like having to fight with my brain to get words out right now.
I think it ended up being something to do with his like he was delayed on his sensitivity read kind of thing. But
yeah, he did a lot of rewriting for the multiple personalities and stuff.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is that pretty much everything? Have we touched on all of it? I feel like so much happened like in the last freaking 70 pages of that book. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it was wild. So we said the little marriage was cute. So I think just based on the epilogue, we do see that the person who went to like save the people with the masks that was actually probably Kelsier with the that arm lined with a network of scars layered atop one another, as if made by scraping skin time and time again. The haunting word he'd spoken echoed in Wax's mind: survive. So that he's a survivor, whatnot, Kelsier. So I think that'll be. Which until you mentioned it earlier, I was always assuming that was just like a different event that happened. But now that makes a lot more sense than the Lord Ruler being alive or having been alive. So that's mind-blowing to me on my second read because I didn't even catch up the second time by myself. But I'm just like, Kelsier just refuses to die. And I think it'll be, if that was what vision that Wax had, that'll be very interesting to see what he does with that information in the next book. But I think that's all that there has been to talk about.
I want to know who made that copper mine. Like, I know that we don't know, but I want to know who made it because it's like
the magic health one or
the coin that the copper mine that was
the coin
was yeah. So it's the coin that is like continuing to be given to him by Hoid, right? Like he's like I don't want this coin. Why do I keep winding up with this coin? And he has it anyway. And Hoid, I don't think is the Feruchemist. So it's like, who made the copper mine? Was it Sazed? Are we seeing like Harmony at work again here? And I also was a little bit bummed out that we didn't see, I almost said Kelsier, that we didn't see Wax put the earring back in. Like after his conversation with Harmony, I was like, put the earring back in. Put the earring back in. You need to keep it on all the time.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, so we don't know a lot about Hoid yet. He has an ability to hop planets and stuff like that, which is why he's Wit in Stormlight, and he's in like all of the books or all of the like separate series in one way or another. So he has abilities we don't understand yet. And I don't know if that makes him like have all of the magical abilities or makes him be someone who's beyond them and can just use them if he wants to in certain situations,
Right.
or if he's just like the bearer of additional information, basically. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a solo entity or if he's working on behalf of someone. There's just a lot of unknowns at this point. I think that's part of the like rereading mystery.
Yeah. I think was it in Greek mythology, was it who brought fire to the humans? And
Atlas?
he ends up, I don't think it was Atlas. It was I keep wanting to say Artemis. It's not Artemis either.
Well, so Atlas is the one that like had to hold up the weight of the world.
Right.
Let me see. I Google real quick. Titan. Oh, Prometheus. I didn't
Prometheus.
Yeah.
Wit and Hoed are kind of coming across to me as almost a Prometheus type character, because the people who are writing the Arcanum Unbounded and the people who are communicating with him in the epigraphs and the people he's communicating with in the epigraphs all, yes, are like, you're meddling, stop meddling. And he's like, but I like meddling. Meddling is what I do. So I'm like, you're Prometheus, aren't you? Like, you're just giving people all the stuff to fight back against the gods. You're the guy who's like, hey, you tiny people, wake up. There's stuff happening.
Yep. So we are reading Arcanum Unbounded next. I will say we've already in technicality read Edge Dancer, and some people might have already read Mistborn Secret History, but
yeah. I'm excited about 11th Metal, because you told me that Kelsier pops up in 11th Metal, or maybe it's Secret History. But yeah, we're doing Arcanum Unbounded.
Secret History is mostly about him, actually.
Okay.
So
how many stories are in Arcanum Unbounded? It's like 6, right?
Emperor's Soul, Hope of Elantris, 11th Metal, Alamancor Jack in the Pits of Altania, episode 28 through 30, Mistborn Secret History. Then there's The White Sand. It's that section is a graphic novel. I did actually buy the first comic, so
I see. Okay.
It actually was very interesting. And then there is Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell. I really liked that one. There's Six of the Dusk and Edge Dancer, so that's more than 6. But honestly, like, I'm a fan of collections of short stories, so it's like, ooh, and then I'm like, wait, it's over? What do you mean it's over? I need a whole ass book about that, please.
Yes. So we're reading Arcanum Unbounded next. I am planning on filming in the next few days a sort of like Sanderfan read-along re-announcement to kind of let everybody know where we're headed next, because after we do Arcanum Unbounded, then we're going to do maybe the Skyward series, and we still need to read Warbreaker, and then we're talking about going into Wheel of Time next year. So yeah,
I'll probably personally tap out for Wheel of Time. I'm actively on book 5, and I don't need to reread them again. But I feel like if we're doing, we should probably do Warbreaker before we switch out of the Cosmere to his other works, just because I think if you I don't know if you'll have a plan, but I think he's writing right now the last of the Skyward series. That way, you could just finish it all at once. But either way, I'm here for the ride for the Sanderson experience.
Yes. Well, and like originally, Sammy and I had talked about doing September, October, November for the Skyward trilogy, but actually I think Skyward is like, the third one's actually coming out towards the end of November, so we would probably be reading it in December. So then
November 23rd.
Right. So October, November, December for the Skyward trilogy, and then I think maybe we talked about doing Warbreaker in September, but I can't remember. We need to actually just like great. I really want to read Warbreaker because apparently it has more of Sword Nimmy, and I just need some more talking swords in my life. That's pretty cool.
A large amount of, there's a good chunk of stuff that will make more sense than Words of Radiance after reading Warbreaker. So
cool. Cool. So yes, I'm going to get an announcement video out for what we're going on for the rest of the year. And then we are just about through the currently published Cosmere stuff. I mean, like, we're almost caught up. So
Yep. And then we'll just have to do a reunion tour when more books come out.
right. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I've got.
That's all
Yay
I've got.
for another trilogy knocked out, or yay for another series.
Yep. Arcanum Unbound is fun, and I support the purchasing of the comic or graphic novel for White Sands because it like stops in the middle of the story, and I'm like, wait, I'm waiting for the next one to show up at my Barnes and Nobles because I told myself, I'm like, if they're actually available to purchase, I'll buy them, kind of thing. But I'm not gonna like go out of my way to order them because graphic novels are expensive. But the first one was actually very good, so that's the one I've read officially.
Cool. I'll be curious to read more about the White Sands too, because I know that in Rhythm of War we started to get a lot of that.
The stands.
Yes, and like everything's crossing over. It's all exciting. Okay. All right. So announcement video coming up soon. We're reading Arcanum Unbounded next. If you're not in the Discord, you should get there because it's fun there, and we'll put a link to that in the description box below and a link to Casey's channel so that you can go check her out.
Yes, I will be talking about books later today at some point. Bye.
All right. So, bye.
Bye, everyone.